Okay, so this is our 10th session of Avelut. Welcome everyone. Good to see everyone. And we're now in chapter 376 of Tur Yoreh De'ah. We almost finished it last week, but now we had a little paragraph left. So he speaks of the Kaddish. That is a Kaddish that in some Sidurim, I think in the Yemenite Sidur, appears as the regular Kaddish. In today's tradition, it's never said except for Siyum Masechet, but when you finish a tractate of the Talmud. But in the past, it was the Kaddish that was reserved for the cemetery, and we'll talk more about Kaddish when we get to the one paragraph when it's mentioned in the shulhan-arukh. This is the nusach of the Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. May Hashem's great name will be great and sanctified be'almad wa'atid lehadata, in the world that He is going to renew, ul'ahya'a metaya, and He is going to revive the dead, ul'shachlela hechaleh, and to build the temple, ul'mifrak hayaya, and to redeem those who are alive, ul'mivnei kartad Yerushalem, and to build the city of Yerushalayim, and to remove the idol worshippers from his land, and to return the service of the temple, the Holy One, to its place, to its shine, to its glory, to its divine providence, in your life, in your days. May it will be the end of war, sword literally, but they mean wars and famine and death from us and all the people of Israel. Let us say Amen. So this is sort of the prayer that is said at the cemetery. We'll talk more about Kaddish. There are many different minhagim about the Kaddish, and all of them are relatively recent. The origin of Kaddish, and just say here in parentheses, the origin of Kaddish was in when they had study sessions in the time of the Talmud and the time of the Geonim. For the people to be able to participate in the limud, even if they did not understand, they would say at the end, Yidgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, may Hashem's great name be blessed, and with the understanding that limud, that learning Torah, magnifies and sanctifies Hashem's name. But we'll get to it later. As I said, in that siman also 376, nishal lagaon. There was a question that was sent to the Gaonim. נוהגים אצלנו כשחוזרים מבית הקברות, רוחצים ידיהם קודם כניסתן לבתיהם ויושבים על הדרך. מה טעם? So people asked. We don't know where the question was sent from, but they say we have the custom that when we come back from the cemetery, we wash our hands before we get into the back into the house, and we sit somewhere on ala derech, on the way home. So obviously, sitting on the ala derech is because they would walk home and not ride in a car. So they would just sit on the ground somewhere. They asked, what is the reason for that? The Gaon answered, "En tzrichin lirchotz, v'im noagim v'rochatzim en bechach klum." He says you don't have to wash your hands, but if you do it anyway, not a problem. So interesting here. We have to look both at the question and the answer. The question that is raised in front of the Gaon is something that people do today in most cemeteries that I visited. There are jars or utensils and faucets for people to wash hands, and I know a lot of people who do it religiously. Even people who are not so observant, especially in the Sephardic community, are very, very careful to wash their hands when they go back home from the cemetery. Some people also make this stop that is mentioned in the question referred to the Gaon, of making a stop somewhere. I know people who would enter a store like a 7-Eleven here in America, or maybe I mentioned that in Bogota, in front of the old cemetery. The old cemetery was in a very poor neighborhood, and across from the cemetery was a little concession store where sometimes you could buy cigarettes by the unit. So poor was the neighborhood. And I think that the storekeeper would be happy whenever there was a funeral, because all the people who attended the funeral, like 100 people, would come into the store and buy everything because they had this tradition. Where does it come from? It's a superstition. People feel that when they were in the cemetery, they contracted some kind of a bad omen or a bad spirit, so they want to cast it away, so they stop somewhere else. So they don't feel that I came back to the home from the synagogue, directly from the cemetery. Same thing with washing your hands. You want to sort of remove the evil spirit or that bad omen. So the remarkable thing for me is the answer of the Gaon. He doesn't answer matam. He doesn't answer what is the reason, because for him it's obvious that it is superstition. And he just says, "En tzrichim lichos." You don't have to do it. Just forget about it. And that is a marker of the Gaonic literature, by the way, the proclivity towards logic and common sense. They rejected mystical traditions and so on. And Maimonides continued their tradition to an extreme, maybe because he went so much to the extreme of rejecting all mystical traditions, that mysticism sprung back to life. But the Gaon says you don't have to do that, and he adds, if you do it, it's fine. So it's the opposite of what you would have thought today. I didn't do it. What's going to happen? And say, if you didn't do it, what can you do? He says, no, if you do it, it's fine. You really don't have to do it. And why would he say that you don't have to do it? Because as we were discussing the Avelut and mourning and the support of the community being given to the mourners, we understand that it not only you don't carry back with you from the cemetery some kind of a bad omen. It's the opposite. You bring with you a sense of a great mitzvah. You were there to support people, and you have to look at it as something positive. We cannot escape death. We have to accept it. So Rav Hai continues. Rav Hai was famous as one who emphasized logic. He has a responsa or responsum where people ask him about practical Kabbalah, people who perform miracles by using God's names. He says it's ridiculous, never happened, never will happen. So he says, "Lo na'agu me'olam lekaneh yedehem bebavel be'afar, v'chen anu ro'im deman de'avad ach yed bechach klum." Rav Hai also said he knows of some people who used to wipe their hands with dust, because not always you had running waters in the cemetery. So they would just take some dust and rub their hands, again, to remove that evil spirit. He says, we know that some people do it. What can we do? En bechach klum, meaning it's not a prohibition to do it. Ela shar ele me'abad. Aval netilat yadayim lebatar hachi leika ela b'mi shenesa'o lamita. Ad kan lagonim. But Rav Hai was a little concerned about washing hands. He says, don't do it. The only people who should do it are the pallbearers, those who carried the coffin. ובמקומות הללו נהגו בכך לקנח בעפר ולתלוש עשב מן המחובר לאחר קדיש ולרחוץ ידיהם במים. So the author of the tour says, in these places, and he could have been referring to either Germany or Spain, because he moved from Germany to Spain, but he wrote his book in Spain, so probably he refers to Spain. He says the chasam is to wipe your hands with dust, to uproot some blades of grass from the ground, and wash their hands with water. So interesting, right? What the Gohanim says, don't do this, you don't have to do it, but if you do, it's okay. And if you do only dust and don't do water. So people say, okay, we'll do water and dust and grass. Today people wash their hands with water. I didn't see the custom of rubbing your hands with dust, but the pulling up some grass I've seen, and people put it on the headstone, as if to say, I visited here, right? In Yerushalayim and in other places, I've seen people putting stones on the grave. I don't tell people not to do it, because that's their custom. But my grandfather was not in favor of that. He felt that it's disrespectful. He felt that the grave should be kept clean and not to put nothing on it. But to each his own. Again, we have minhagim, so nothing is really forbidden. What is the explanation? Says the two to those minagim of doing those three things, of washing your hands and rubbing with dust, and also they say all these are alluding to the creation of men. Hamayim ve'afar elu remez laitzira ve'lamita. The water and the dust symbolize creation and death. Even though water is not mentioned in the creation of men, but in the Midrash says that, and we always think like that, but maybe it is alluded to. Actually, it is alluded to in the Torah. The Torah says, "Vayitzer Adonai Elohim et Adam afar min Adama," and Hashem Elohim crafted Adam dust from the earth. Right. So Vayitzer is from the word Yotzer, which means a potter. So God works like a potter. A potter must mix water with dust to create the raw material from the lump from which to sculpt the pot. So maybe that is where they took it from. And the grass is an allusion to the revival of the dead, as it is written in the Navi. They will spring out from the ground like grass. So this is Siman 376. Now we go into Siman 378. Avel asur lechol mi shelo basauda harishona, aval bashniya mutar afilu biyom rishon. The mourner cannot eat his own food on the first meal, but in the second one he's allowed even on the first day. Umitzvah al shchenav sheyachilu mishelahem kedei shelo yochal mishelo, and it's incumbent upon his neighbors to feed him of their own food, so he will not have to eat his own food. And one can feed ויכול אחד להאכיל את חברו בימי אבלו, והוא יחזור גם כן ויאכילו בימי אבלו, ובלבד שלא יתנו תחילה. And I can help my neighbor, and he can help me, meaning I will prepare his food when he's a mourner, and he will prepare my food when I'm a mourner, and it's okay as long as we don't make a condition, as we don't make it into a deal. I'll cook for you, you'll cook for me, because then it becomes a barter, an exchange, and it's like it becomes my own meal, because it's something that I can collect as a debt. Isha she'ra'a evel en la'anashim la'avrota. But if a woman is mourning, men cannot prepare the food for her because it's a sign of intimacy. The idea that the Avel cannot eat his own food on the first day is interesting. Why would it be forbidden? So the way we understand this halacha of feeding the Avel from not his own food is more the emphasis is not as much on who owns the food, but rather the reluctance of the Avel to eat. However, let me share this screen from this is the Bet Yosef. 1 second. I want to show you the Bet Yosef, the commentary of Rabbi Yosef Karo on that. Let's see what he says. He says, he quotes the Gemara, Amar Rav Yudah Amarav, Avel Yom Rishon, Asur Le'echol Lechem Mishelo, Amar Lerachamana Li'Yehezkel, Ve'lechem Anashim Lo Tochel. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, a mourner cannot eat on the first day his own bread, his own food. Where do they take it from? From the story of Yehezkel. We referred to this chapter in Yehezkel when we started talking about the laws of Avelut in the Tanakh. This is one of the examples where we find actually a reference to the way people would mourn. So in that chapter, God tells Yehezkel that he's going to lose his wife, but he's not going to mourn. And that was a symbolic act, very cruel one, for Yehezkel, to tell him how the Israelites are going to feel after the destruction. They will lose relatives and dear ones, but they will not have time to mourn. So one of the things that Hashem tells Yehezkel is this, Ve'lechem anashim lo tochel. So let's go one moment to this pasuk and see it in context. It's very important to see everything especially when we have such references, to see them in context. So we go to Yehezkel. It's chapter 24, verse 17. But we can see the whole chapter. So, it says here, Ben Adam, hineni lokech mimcha et mahmad einecha b'magefa. Says your wife is going to die in a plague. Velo tispod, velo tivke, velo tavod im'atecha. You will not say a eulogy or cry excessively. Velo tivke, you should not cry. Velo tavod im'atecha, you will not even shed a tear. He'anek dom metim, evel lo ta'aseh. You must maintain complete silence and do not practice mourning the way people do for the dead. Pe'ercha havosh alecha, have your hat on, or your hat, or your whatever head cover that you have, headgear. Una alecha tasim beraglecha, and wear your shoes. Don't remove your shoes. Velo ta'ate al safam, and do not cover your face. People used to cover their face over the mustache. Velechem anashim lo tuchel, and do not eat the bread of people. Okay, so the in the context of the pasuk, we could say that the pshat of the pasuk says velechem anashim lo tochel. The kishar avelim. This is what Radak says. Kishar avelim sheshulchim lehem shchenehem ma'achal. The Avel eats food that other people give him. He says, don't eat food that others will give you. Now, the Pasuk doesn't say, this Pasuk in Yehezkel, does not say that he is forbidden to eat his own food, right? Only that it was customary for people to support the Avel. So, the way that the halacha took it, I mean, already in the Talmud, that he's asur le'choleh mishalo, he cannot eat his own bread, is strange. It's a little exaggerated, and I would say that, I mean, anyway, people do it today, but it's just a little strange how they took the halacha from just a statement to a prohibition. Obviously, what the Navi says is, and that is a logical thing for people to do. Especially in a Nittite community, the neighbors of the mourner would want to help him or her during the first days of the mourning and make food for him. But also, they want to make sure, and this is what we do today, we want to make sure that the mourner does not detach himself completely from reality. And this is what I tell people when we have Saudat Havra'ah. That's how I explain it. I say that as mourners, we feel complete, you could say, disillusion with the world. We don't want to know anything about this world. The world is cruel. We just experience death. Who wants to eat? Who wants to drink? Right? So we force them to eat, telling them, we understand that you're there, but you cannot stay there forever. You have to come back to reality. But they talk about, like I said, in Halakha, they talk more about allowed or not allowed. And they even say, Ratzah ha'avel shelo lekabel ha'avra'ah. If the Avel rejects the meal, he's allowed to. But we don't do that today. Today, the whole idea of havra'ah, in modern Hebrew, havra'ah means recovery, becoming healthy. But in biblical Hebrew, lehavrot means to feed someone. So the focus here is on the Avel being passive. He is being fed when we force him to eat. The Torah continues to say, "En mevi'in sham," and these are not things that we do today, but it's just good to know what was the practice in the past. "En mevi'im sham lo besamim velo mugmar, al mevi'im aval mevi'im otam bebayit shemet sham ve'en mevarchim alea." Usually, when people had a meal, they would bring fragrance, either liquid, which is besamim or herbs, or mugmar, which was incense. They would spread some powder, some kind of powder over coals, and it would produce this good fragrance. But this was not done in Bet Avel because they felt that it's done only for festive occasions. But it was done Babayit Shemecham. They would do it in the house where someone passed away because of the smell. They had to, they didn't have a means of preserving the body, so sometimes that was necessary just to cover, unfortunately, what happened there. And therefore they wouldn't say bracha because you only say bracha for besamim or fragrance that you enjoy, that are an improvement of something good, but not something that covers for bad smell. And one does not give a sermon in the house of the mourner, but rather you sit down and keep quiet. And this is, I think, quite surprising to us, right? The way we know Minhagei Avelut today, right? The rabbi comes over, the rabbi speaks, relatives speak, etc. So this is something that has to do with changing norms, with the changing society. There is a need for people to hear soothing things, soothing words. Unfortunately, not always this is the case. I've been in enough Shiva observations where what people said was inappropriate. Either they said things that were not necessary, or they tried to explain to people why whatever happened has happened, or the most common thing is that I would see someone, and to me, I think that it is doesn't belong there. Someone would stand up and say, it's customary to study Mishnayot, and he would just pick a Mishnah in random, or the Mishnah of the day and teach it. And I don't think that there is a point or a need to teach a Mishnah or anything that is not related to Avelut, to the mourners, to the person who passed away in the house of the Avel. So that's very important to keep in mind what kind of Divrei Torah we want to say there. Also, the point of visiting the Avel is not to be engaged in idle talk. A lot of people feel that when they visit the Avel, they have to make them forget, just let them forget, ignore what has happened. The visitors are stuck in the phase of denial even more than the Avelim, and we have to be careful about that. So let's continue with the tour. בראשונה היו מוליכים לבית האבל עשירים בקלטות של כסף וזהב ושותים בזכוכית לבנה. Originally is like in the 1st century maybe, the food would be brought to the house of the mourner with trays, with silver and golden tray, and they would drink in cups of transparent glass or white glass, which is very expensive. And the poor people would, the food would be brought to them in wicker baskets, and they would drink from tinted glass, and the poor people would feel embarrassed. So the rabbis made a decree that everybody should, the food that is served at the shiva should be equal for all. And it's interesting because I've seen that in my community. I grew up in Yerushalayim with the Iraqi tradition that my grandfather, Rabbi Haim Ovadia, carried on from his father and grandfather, 10 generations of rabbis. And there were some people in the community that would have a meal at the end of the Shiva, a full meal. And this is something that I have also seen in the Persian community in Los Angeles, where there was really a lavish meal with meat and rice and several dishes, and it was almost a festive event. And my grandfather always said that what we did in our, most of the Iraqi community in Yerushalayim is the norm, which was they always serve the same food at the Shiva, at the end of the Shiva. It was 3 types of food 4 types of food. So you could say the four brachot shakol adama etz mezonot, and hot tea and coffee. So there were Iraqi bagels for mezonot. They had cucumbers and peanuts for adama, and apples or grapes for borei pri haaretz. And that was and the tea and coffee for shakol. And that was very simple and sort of like, that was not standardizing halacha as that you have to have this or that, but more like an equalizer. You don't have to spend too much and to show your wealth or your prowess dafka at that moment. But interesting also to note here the difference between transparent glass and colored glass. It's not about only the value of the glass, but also that poor people would drink water from tinted glass, so people will think that they're drinking wine. And I'm making this statement because it's related to a completely different issue, with has to do with Chot Kiddush Hashem. The Gemara speaks about two brothers who were executed by the Greeks because they refused to drink wine that was served to them, and the bottom line of that story is, based on that understanding, is that they were told to drink water from red tinted cups, so people will think that they drank wine, and they refused. So if you understand that over there, you understand what is the level of Kiddush Hashem that is required from one. That's an interesting point. But that, anyway, that tells us that they were drinking wine at the mourner's house. In all of the years of my, I would say career, but my work as a community rabbi, I think I have only seen one case where people served wine at the house of the Avel, and that was at the house of someone whose mother was a Holocaust survivor from Poland, and who has declared that he does not believe in God, and that he's not going to die either. He told me, I'm not going to die. I said, what do you mean? He says, the moment I die, I cease to exist, so I will not know that I died, so I technically don't die. That was interesting. I told him personally that the fact that he still argues with God means that he does believe in God, but it was interesting that was the only place where, he sent his son to go fetch a case of wine, and he served it to everyone. So that was like a rarity, but when you look at halacha, you say that was the norm. Here's the baraita, Tanya, 10 kosot itkinu bevet haavel. The practice was to serve 10 cups of wine at the house of the mourner. 3 before the meal, 3 during the meal, 4 after the meal. Hosifu aleim od arba'a, and then they added another 4. Hithilu shotim u'mishtakrim, and then people would get drunk at the house of the mourner. Yahziru hadavar liyoshno uferesh Rabbeinu Shlomo le'asara. So they went back to the original halacha. What was the original halacha? According to Rashi, 10 cups. According to Ramban, שלא ישתו אלא לתוך הסעודה, דיין לאחר הסעודה משקר וכן עמד דבר. So Ramban says no, they limited it to drinking only during the meal. It's very probable. I'm going to check the chat for a second. I wonder if someone is commenting what I'm thinking now. The 4 cups, or the 4 cups of Pesach, I commented on it, separately, that you don't have to drink 4 cups. Only the one who does the seder has to drink, and he can drink just most of the cup, most of it, which is like 3.5 ounces. But definitely, we don't have the capacity of drinking wine that they had. First of all, they were working people, physically working, and they couldn't drink water, so they got used to drinking wine. Water was usually dangerous. You had to boil it before you drink it. Not always tasty, and people drank a lot of wine. Here we see the difference between Germany and Spain. Ramban, who is from Catalonia, Barcelona, or Gerona, and Rabbeinu Shlomo, who is from France, Rabbeinu of Provence, Rabbeinu Shlomo says they brought it back to 10 cups. Ramban says no, only drink during the meal. So a book that I highly recommend, it's in Hebrew, but I think also translated to English, Yeinam by Haim Ovadia. It's about the wine in medieval times, and also by Yenesech. He says that the average consumption of wine in Germany and Provence, where Rashi and his contemporaries lived, was about a gallon of wine a day for an adult. So like about 4 bottles, or 4 to 6 bottles of wine. That way, yeah. So they had a different capacity, but just interesting. Nobody. I think most of us cannot even imagine today in a Jewish shiva wine being served, but that was the norm at the time. Then he quotes another baraita also, probably from Masechet Sofrim. Vayazed Yaakov Nazid. That's a famous midrash on the encounter between Yaakov and Esav when Esav asks to be fed from the stew. The commentator, the Talmudic or Gaonic midrash says, "Oto hayom niftar Avraham Avinu, ve'asa Yaakov tavshil shel adashim lehavrot et aviv." The day was it was the day that Avraham Avinu passed away, and Yaakov made a lentil stew to feed his father. This statement is, by the way, problematic. If you recall the previous halacha where it says that Avel cannot eat of his own food, and since Yaakov is part of Yitzhak's household, how can he serve Avraham food Yitzhak food that belongs to Yitzhak? So we don't ask questions about the midrash, but obviously it was not the day that Avraham died. Doesn't matter. They just wanted that as a proof to the custom. So they say mashna adashim. Why lentils? Ma adasha ze galgal. Af avelut galgal hachozer ba'olam. The lentil looks like a wheel, and mourning is also a wheel. What goes up must come down. It happens to everyone. Sort of telling people, today you are the mourner and I'm comforting you. Tomorrow it will be the opposite. So we all help each other. And you have to accept this reality. Some say no, it's different because lentils don't have a mouth. That is a metaphor. If most of the legumes and beans have sort of a line like lips. So they say of all these legumes, lentils don't have that line, so they have no mouth. So the Avel, the mourner, also doesn't have a mouth, meaning he can't say anything. He has to sit silent. So what is the difference between those two opinions? One says it's because it looks like a wheel. The other one says because it has no mouth. So they say, could you serve the mourner eggs because eggs have no mouth, but they are not a wheel. So one symbolic act will be fulfilled, the other would not. I'll return to that in a second. Katav Aritz Giat. Aritz Giat is a Hacham from Sefarad that summarized most of the work of the Geonim. And he writes, quoting Avel Rabati, Makom shenagu lenahem avelim bevitzim va'adashim ma'achilim, Makom shenagu lenahem bebasar v'yain ma'achilim. So he says, in some places, the custom is to feed the avelim, beitzim va'adashim, eggs and lentils. So just to be sure, they use both. And in some places, they feed them with basar v'yain, meat and wine. So because lentils and eggs are associated with mourning, I know of different customs that have to do with that. So, for example, in my community, in the Iraqi community, people will not eat lentils on Shabbat. You would eat it every other day as usually a rice and lentil soup or dish. But not on Shabbat because it's a sign of mourning, and you don't mourn on Shabbat. regarding eggs, I've heard about two customs, both from North Africa. One is that you don't peel an egg, a hard-boiled egg, for another person, because it reminds people of the avel that is being handed an egg peeled by another person, and also that you don't share an egg with another person. So if in that community, if you cut an egg and you give a half to another person, it will be offensive. If it's already cut and put on the table, it's different. And another custom that was born from Saudat Havra'ah is the custom among Sephardim and many Ashkenazim as well, not to hand the bread by hand to other people around the table on Shabbat. When you break bread or you cut the bread, you put it on a plate and you pass it around, or you toss it to people. The reason is that in Saudat Havra'ah, the meal immediately following the funeral, people are fed bread. They're being given bread by hand. So because we forced them to eat, so they wanted people wanted to make a distinction and say on Shabbat we don't do that. Also, a lot of superstitions around Avelut. The last comment of Maharitz Giat, that some people serve meat and wine and some don't. I have also seen that there are some people that the mourner himself doesn't eat meat the whole week, and then the other extreme is in some cities within the Yemenite community, everyone who comes into the house must eat meat, must say the bracha over meat. I don't know about wine, but at least meat they have to have. Any questions or comments about that? I wonder if you have of minhagim that are immediately related to that issue of the Saudat Havra'ah. I've seen, I think I mentioned to you once that in a Saudat Havra'ah for one of my students who was Bukharian from Bukhara, they served chicken soup, and I had to because I was the doyen back in the day. I was the eldest of the people there present, and I was the head of the kollel. They honored me with the task of serving everyone. They served the idea of Saudat Havra'ah that was extended to every day of the Shiva, and every day of the Shiva after the prayer they would bring a tray with polo, with rice and chicken soup, with vegetables, and the most honorable person among the people present there had to serve everyone. Interesting minhag. Okay, so now we get to chapter 380, where the Torah deals with the prohibitions that are imposed on the mourner. That for Orthodox people, this is the area where they are most struggle with, because they want to do everything correctly for their loved ones, especially when it's your parents, and they wanted to do also what is right in the eyes of the community. But sometimes they feel that it is too much, and that's where we have to think of the seat in life and the context and how society has changed. So we read this: Elu dvarim sheha'avel asur bahem. Those are the things that the mourners is not allowed to do. Melacha, he's not allowed to do work. Rechitza, bathing or taking a shower. Sicha, anointing yourself with oils or creams. Ne'ilat sandal, wearing shoes, specifically leather shoes. Tashmish amita, conjugal relationships. Ve'asur likrot b'Torah, he cannot read from the Torah. Ve'asur b'shi'ilat shalom, he cannot greet other people. Uvichvisa, cannot wash his clothes. Ve'hayav ba'atifat harosh, uvichfiyat amita kol shiva, and he must cover his head, wrap his head up to his nose, and kfiyat amita, and untying the ropes that would hold the mattress, and putting his mattress or whatever, it was not a mattress, really is a hide and some feathers that he would sleep on, put them on the floor, and all these apply all 7 days. Ve'asur laniach tefillin b'yom harishon. He cannot put tefillin on the first day. Ve'asur begihutz uv'tisporet ve'simcha ve'yihu yakera kol 30 yom. He cannot do gihutz, which is not ironing. This is the modern term. Modern Hebrew gihutz is ironing. The gihutz of rabbinical language means bleaching. So it's more than just kvisa, washing. Gihutz is bleaching with special detergents. Uvetisporet, and having a haircut. Vesimcha, and any type of joy. Ve'ihu yakera kol 30 yom, and mending the tear, the garment that he tore during the Shiva, and that extends all 30 days. So let's go back now and see them one by one. If we adhere to all of them, so for some people it's difficult. So we'll go later on when we go through the tool to see how it was defined. But I just speak briefly of each and every one of them. So melacha is work. And like in other places in the Gemara and in Halacha where they speak about melacha, it literally means craftsmanship or working in the field. So commerce is not really part of that, and that is the area that a lot of people struggle with. When they're mourners, not everyone has someone to run his business for him. The way we conduct our business today is not the way it used to be in the past. When you think of someone who's a farmer, for example, and has to sit still for 7 days, his friends, his neighbors could pull together and do his work for him. Right? They share their working hands with him. If he's a carpenter or a blacksmith, whatever he does, he has an apprentice, someone can do the work for him. But if you work as a teacher, you work as a CEO, you're independent, whatever work you have, not always you can avoid the work for 7 days. Today, people in some countries, some places, people are given leave for mourning, but sometimes it's not even about that. So even though one can take off from work, he cannot afford it. I mean, he's allowed by the regulations of the workplace, but he cannot afford it in terms of the work that is going to pile up. So that's where one has to really make difficult decisions and think about what is the most important thing for him now, and also what would his, I would say, father or mother want for him. If they really loved him, would they want them to sit home now and be stressed out, or find ways to balance this work and Shiva and so on? So if one feels that he must attend to his business, must go to work, and leave the house for that, they should do that. Try to minimize it, go out for a couple of hours, do whatever you have to do, come back home, be there in the morning and the evening to receive visitors. But again, it's a question of a personal choice. No, we should not look at it as a prohibition. It's a prohibition because this is how the community sees it. And this is also because the mourning needs time for reflection. Usually people who run back to work is because they try to drown their thoughts. This is part of denial. So it's important not to work, but also important not to create greater difficulties by not working. It's a question of a very fine balance that is a case-on-case basis. So whether it's your question or people come to you with that question, I think that is what we should tell them. Rechitza. The next thing is rechitza. Washing. So washing is something that one cannot do all 7 days, as well as anointing, applying oils or creams to the body. So, from what we know from other sources from rabbinical period, people used to wash not so often. And you would get the impression when you read the Tanakh, when you read the Torah, that people literally lived in the water because because we keep reading about the mikveh, right? And you have to go to the mikveh, but in reality, people didn't have this accessibility of running water, of hot water. So unless it's summer and you want to cool down, what they call the rehitza, washing your body, scrubbing your body, was not a thing that people did on a daily basis. They would do it once a week. Same thing with washing your clothes. Most people wash their garments once a week. I don't know if any of you remember, but maybe we've seen it in the movies of people scrubbing clothes on a washboard. I think that today's generation, if they even hear the word washboard, it's only when it refers to the physique of someone, right? But they don't know what a washboard even looks like. But that was work. There was a hassle of washing clothes. You have to. Remember, my mother told me that her mother in Bangladesh had to boil water to do the laundry. You had to actually boil water in the or a grandmother maybe in the late 1800s had to boil water in a pot and then put it in a bowl and then and rub the. So that was a lot of work. It's not today's washing. It's not today's hygiene. We are spoiled. We have much higher standards because we have it. It's available. So, but what it causes great discomfort to some people who want to adhere to this halacha, and they say that they see that the shulhan-arukh, the tool says you can't take a bath for 7 days. I don't think that any of us could live through this. It's very difficult. But if you complain, there will be people who tell you, how can you complain? You're a mourner. You think about someone who died. How can you think about yourself? And this is not a good, correct attitude. Like Rabbi Rubin commented here, those are only minhagim. You have to feel comfortable. The answer to that is that when they said don't wash all 7 days, is because you washed once a week. So do it less. So wait until after the Shiva to wash. For us, who we take a bath or a shower, depends where you live and what are the water restrictions, daily, what you do is you diminish the level of luxury. You could skip one shower or take it with, instead of steaming water, do it with lukewarm water. But again, this is something that has to do with one's feeling. This is how I feel, that I express my mourning for my parent or my loved ones. But it's always extremely important, whatever we do in terms of Avelut, not to do something that diminishes our sense of dignity and the image of God, because that breeds depression and sometimes aggression, and that's not something that we need. We need to have, with all the grief that we have to maintain an understanding of human dignity. So anything that could harm human dignity in terms of one's sense of cleanliness or something like that should be avoided during the time of the Shiva. It should not be avoided during the Shiva, meaning that if one needs to take a bath or put cream, not a problem. Sicha is not something that we do today. We don't apply oils. When they speak about applying oils to your body, it's not it's not hand cream. It's not about that. It's usually fragrant oils that were meant to cover up for body odor, and sometimes also for nurturing oils. So, but creams that are medicinal or for cracked skin or something like that, one could definitely use during the Shiva. Ne'ilata sandal, wearing leather shoes. The other option, other than wearing leather shoes, was walking barefoot. Back in the day, it was either walking barefoot or wearing leather shoes. They had some type of sandals made from raffia or reed, but the reference here to shoes is leather shoes. But it is mentioned later on. We'll see that if you need to walk in a place where the only thing that could protect you is leather. Let's say the funeral takes place in a deep snow, and the only boots that you have are leather boots. You can run out to the store and buy, or even in any other weather, they only have leather shoes. You don't have something else. Then your dignity and your comfort trump the that minhag, but you will have to, when you come back home, you go barefoot, even if you don't have that. And then that is a level of discomfort that we could live with. Tashmish Amita is conjugal relationships. That was I think it was important also. Was important to tell the husband not to force his wife during the shiva to have relationships. Those are things that were really discussed. V'asur likrot b'Torah. So some people extended that likrot b'Torah. They understood as one cannot study Torah at all. But it seems like the original phrasing of the halacha asur likrot b'Torah, that he should not be the one reading the Torah. Either that, or that really, when this halacha was stated, that the only written text that people could use was the Torah. V'asur b'shilat shalom u'vichvisa, and he cannot wash his clothes. Remember, I told you that it was done once a week. For that, we have a very clear proof. The Talmud says that one of the takanot of Ezra was to wash your clothes on Thursday, so you would have clean clothes for Shabbat. Meaning you have only one robe and you wash it on Thursday to have it clean for Shabbat after you wore it all week, right? Again, asur b'shilat shalom, greeting depends on the norm of the community. If someone comes into your house and they don't know about this custom that the mourner doesn't greet people, and he says hello and you sit there and you don't look at him, that's offensive. You could say hello. You could say, if you have the time, we don't say hello. But all these things should be done in a balanced way. V'chayav ba'atifat harosh, which is something that we don't do today, because we don't wear robes or shawls in a way that we could cover our head. Even at the time of the Tur, people didn't do it, because this halacha referred to Eretz Yisrael, where in Mishnaic times people had robes and shawls that they would cover their face, and they would do it often because of winds that would bring dust, as people today put surgical masks sometimes, because of their fear of pollution. So atifat harosh was a common thing. It is also mentioned in halacha when you put the talit. The halacha says that you have to do it ka'atifat ha'ishme'alim. You have to wrap your head like the Arabs. And I've seen in many Ashkenazi synagogues that people wrap their whole face with the talit. You can't see their face. And one of the Sephardic commentators said, apparently they never saw an Arabic, or they didn't even think about it logically, because if the halacha says you have to wrap your head the way the Arabs do, right? You have to assume that the Arabs wrap their robe around them, and they go about their business. If they completely cover their face, they will bump into things, right? So that's not the right way to wrap the talit around you. However, we don't do it today. The idea of atifat harosh goes all the way back to the book of Vayikra and the laws of the leper, where it says, "Ve'al safam ya'ateh v'tameta meikra." The leper must sit outside the camp and cover his face, cover his mouth. The idea of covering the mouth is you can't talk. You're not allowed to talk. Originally, it was not about mourning; it was about the leper, because the understanding was that the leprosy was somehow associated with lashon hara, with gossip. So the person who used to gossip about everyone now has to sit with his mouth shut. One more halacha here: asur laniach tefillin b'yom harishon. He is not allowed to wear tefillin on the first day. That's also something that we don't do today. The rabbis allowed people to wear tefillin if they're extremely pious, but now apparently everybody's pious. Everybody wears tefillin on the first day after the funeral. At least most people that I know do that. The interesting thing about this halacha of he's forbidden to wear tefillin is if it is not mentioned in the Torah. I mean, it's alluded to in the same verse that we saw in Yehezkel. Pe'ercha havosh alecha. The rabbis interpreted pe'er as tefillin. So God tells Yehezkel, even though your wife is going to die, you you will remain with your tefillin on. So from that, they're concluded that the Avel usually cannot wear tefillin, but as I said, people do wear tefillin today following the funeral. So we're still in the beginning of that saif, but this is probably one of the most important ones in terms of Avelut, chapter 380. We'll continue B'ezrat Hashem next week. And meanwhile, I want to tell everybody Shabbat Shalom. But I will stay on. I will conclude the podcast now. But the shiur, our Zoom class, will stay on for a couple of minutes in case anyone has any questions. So goodbye for now.